la decisión siempre ha sido nuestra.
Una transformación social es necesaria y no ocurre de la noche a la mañana.
Mejoremos la forma en que realizamos las cosas. Realizarlas con pasión y humanidad es un gran paso.
Es posible que usted, y me dirigí también a la ciudadanía, que usted no tenga la percepción de que hay un problema de salud porque no lo está viendo, no conoce a alguien en particular en su familia o en sus amigos o en sus conocidos o sus vecinos que tenga COVID y posiblemente tiene una percepción de que esto es algo muy lejano o incluso con poca posibilidad, poca probabilidad de que le afecte a usted. Queremos seguir enfatizando que no es el caso. Todas y todos en este país tenemos la posibilidad y una probabilidad considerable de tener la infección, ser infectados, ser contagiados del nuevo coronavirus y tener la enfermedad COVID. Si esto ocurre y la persona que es infectada no tiene enfermedades crónicas, tiene menos de 60 años, no tiene obesidad, no es una mujer embarazada, lo más probable es que tenga una enfermedad que se limita, que dure 10 a 14 días y no pase a mayor consecuencia. Pero si es una persona que tiene obesidad, como lo tienen 3/4 partes de la población mexicana, ya sea obesidad o sobrepeso, o bien tiene alguna enfermedad crónica, o bien tiene antecedentes familiares de diabetes y tiene por lo tanto el riesgo de padecer diabetes sin saberlo, o cualquiera de las situaciones de salud, es una mujer embarazada, etcétera, tiene el riesgo de que tenga una enfermedad que le sorprenda y que le lleve a un desenlace muy desafortunado. No queremos que eso le pase ni a usted ni a nadie y por eso hemos pedido que se queden en casa, que se mantengan a buen resguardo. Está claro que hay una serie de actividades que cada uno de ustedes estaba acostumbrada y acostumbrado a hacer y también está muy claro que hay necesidades de salir porque había una actividad económica, quizá un pequeño negocio, quizá un comercio ambulante, quizá un compromiso de un trabajo que se hace con visita a otros lugares. Nos queda muy claro. No es deseable la situación que estamos viviendo, pero si no hacemos estas medidas de mitigación que se resumen en quédate en casa, lo que va a ocurrir es que van a empezar a aumentar los contagios y eso le va a afectar a usted, a cada uno de ustedes y a todos y todas. Y eso no es deseable para nadie. Lo que le ocurrió a los países europeos, desafortunadamente, no a todos, pero a un buen número de ellos, es que les tomó por sorpresa la epidemia. La consideraron una epidemia que podía controlarse y siguieron circulando en el espacio público por demasiado tiempo. Y cuando ya intentaron hacer algo, era demasiado tarde. No queremos que eso le pase a México. Entonces pedimos, y gracias por la pregunta, Laura, pedimos que sean conscientes de esto. Entre más rápido nos mantengamos en casa, vamos a tener menos contagios, entre más tiempo estemos sin reunirnos con otras personas, vamos a poder salir de este problema. Si no ocurre así, vamos a tener una epidemia más intensa, más difícil de controlar y vamos a sufrir las consecuencias en la salud y también en la vida de todos los días, incluyendo la parte económica. Entonces, más vale mantener el orden, la disciplina y todos juntos, todas juntas, lograr salir adelante.
El resguardo domiciliario y la sana distancia por el coronavirus quedó de lado para los regiomontanos. Apenas un día después de que el Estado alertó por el riesgo en el aumento de contagios, la ciudad lució con tráfico y concentración de personas en diferentes puntos.
Nosotros los seres humanos tenemos nuestros días contados. Nadie se va antes ni nadie se va después. Todos lo contamos. Y si hasta que llego mi vida hoy, hasta aquí se va a llegar. Ya sea que caiga la coronavirus, la pandemia, lo que sea. Y si no hay nada, pues no pasa nada.
No,
sobre todo yo creo en Dios.
No guarda la cuarentena.
No, mira, aquí estoy con mi esposa, mi hermana, venimos a comer un raspado, chamoyada.
Pues, porque es como cualquier enfermedad, o sea, entre más te cuides, más te dañas.
A todos los extraterrestres que andan en la calle, por favor de regresar a sus casas. Sabemos que a ustedes no les pasa nada, pero los humanos tenemos miedo a infectarnos. Por favor de retirarse a sus casas que no tengan nada que hacer. Familia, solamente es una persona autorizada por familia para hacer las compras de los líderes.
I watch CNN, I watch Fox, I watch CBS, and in this case there's a lot of things not being said.
Videos and messages from Chinese citizens leaking through the censorship suggested the situation was much worse than what the regime was reporting. As my research progressed, initial answers turned into more questions. I soon realized there was much more to the story than we were being told. Today, the coronavirus is impacting over 100 countries around the world. Billions of lives are at risk. And from what is said by the Chinese Communist Party, this allegedly started spontaneously in the seafood market in Wuhan, China. Wuhan is the capital of Hubei province, the largest city in central China. Huanan Seafood Market is located in Jianghan district of Wuhan City and is a large, comprehensive market that includes pork and a variety of frozen seafood, flavored spices, as well as some game meats. The first thing that received public attention about the epidemic was an internal notice from the Wuhan Health Commission. There has been a continuous occurrence of pneumonia cases of unknown cause. The notice issued on December 30, 2019, clearly required all medical units to report similar cases of unknown pneumonia. The notice started spreading online, and on December 31, 2019, the Wuhan Health Commission issued a public notice for the first time saying that some medical institutions found a link between the pneumonia cases and the Huanan seafood market. However, the notice pointed out that there was no evidence of obvious human-to-human transmission and no infection among medical personnel. On January 1st, 2020, the Huanan seafood market posted a notice of closure. This was followed by a thorough cleanup of the market, which as an investigative reporter seemed rushed. Guan Yi, a well-known Hong Kong expert, echoed my concern that the move was like destroying a crime scene. Since then, Wuhan officials have repeatedly said that most cases of pneumonia in Wuhan have a history of exposure to the Huanan seafood market. On January 26, the Institute of Virology of China CDC announced that 33 of the 585 environmental samples from the Huanan seafood market were found to contain the novel coronavirus nucleic acid, and the virus was successfully isolated from the positive culture samples, suggesting that the virus originated from wild animals sold at the market. At this point, Huanan seafood market being the source of the epidemic became an official conclusion. A few days later, however, a report from the journal Science published online challenged that story. The report cited a paper in The Lancet, one of the world's top medical journals, and questioned whether Wuhan's novel coronavirus pneumonia could not have originated at the market. The paper titled Clinical Features of Patients Infected with the 2019 Novel Coronavirus in Wuhan, China, was published in The Lancet on January 24. The first author of the paper is Huang Xiaolin, Deputy Director of Jinyintan Hospital, the first designated hospital for treatment of unknown pneumonia in Wuhan. Why would this come as a challenge to the official narrative?
I think this journal article is very important. It reveals a lot of important information. For example, this paper talk about the first patient onset was actually on December 1st. These patients were not related to Huanan seafood market. And also no epidemiological association was found between the first patient and subsequent patient. And then also on this paper, I talk about on December 10th, there were 3 more onset cases, 2 of which were not related to Huanan seafood market wholesale. Major discovery is that a total of 41 patients were counted in this paper, and 14 of them proved to be unrelated to the seafood market, accounting for more than 1/3. No one sells bed at the seafood market too, and the official from CDC didn't mention they find any beds in the seafood market too.
Certainly the Lancet paper showing that supposed patient zero was nowhere near the market. Secondly, that there are no bats in the seafood market or anywhere close. The idea of the spread so fast through a population, just the way it was said through the seafood market, is highly unlikely and improbable.
On January 29th, the Lancet republished an analysis of 99 confirmed cases at Jinyintan Hospital, of which 50 had no history of exposure to the seafood market. According to the New England Journal, of the 425 cases confirmed, 45 cases onset before January 1st had no history of exposure to the seafood market. Notably, the authors of the 2 Lancet papers in the New England Journal of Medicine are doctors and medical experts in mainland China. Daniel Lucy, an epidemiologist at the University of Georgetown, said in response to the Lancet paper that if the data were accurate, the first case would have been infected by the virus already in November 2019, because of the incubation period between infection and symptoms. This would mean that the virus was quietly spreading between people in some parts of Wuhan before the cluster of cases with a history of exposure to Huanan seafood market began on December 15. The first expert group from the National Health Commission arrived in Wuhan as early as December 31st, 2019. The expert panel established a set of diagnostic criteria after investigating Jinyintan Hospital of Wuhan that stipulated a history of contact with Huanan seafood market, the person having a fever, and displaying the whole genome sequence. All 3 standards have to be met to confirm a case. This standard was used until a second group of experts, including Zhang Nanshan, arrived in Wuhan on January 18th and made a revision. Why did the panel impose a history of seafood market exposure as a criteria of diagnosis, knowing that at least 1/3 of the cases were unrelated to the seafood market?
They clearly know about 14 patients not related to Huanan seafood market at all. That clearly means another source of outbreak. I think somehow this could be a malfeasance or somewhat intentionally cover up some important source of infection.
It can go a long way to covering up the actual source by imposing a false place and you're not looking at the actual victims. Then you're only allowed to find your keys under the light post.
On January 10th, China disclosed the full genome sequence of the Wuhan novel coronavirus, and many of the world's top virologists began analyzing it. As early as January 7th, academic Zhang Yongzhen from the National Institute of Communicable Disease Control and Prevention, along with the School of Public Health of Fudan University, submitted a joint paper to Nature. The paper was published on February 3rd, and pointed out that the Wuhan coronavirus is closely related to COV-ZC45 and COV-ZXC21, 2 viruses sampled from bats in Zhoushan by the People's Liberation Army. The Wuhan coronavirus has an 89.1% nucleotide similarity to the COV-ZC45 virus and even exhibits 100% amino acid similarity in the NSP7 and E proteins. Shortly after the paper was published, other scientists used BLAST, a program developed by the National Institute of Health and the National Center for Biotechnology Information, to compare the viral sequence based on the data submitted by Chinese authorities on January 12th. The results matched with Zhang's findings. Another scientist, Lu Raojian from the Chinese Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and their team also published a paper in The Lancet on January 30. The paper stated that the Wuhan virus has an 88% similarity to 2 bat-derived SARS-like coronaviruses collected in Zhoushan. Zhejiang province of China. The earliest discovery of this bat-derived virus is by an expert from the Research Institute for Medicine of Nanjing Command. A paper published in 2018 states that scientists from this institute detected many SARS-like coronaviruses in bats from Zhoushan City, also known as bat-like coronavirus, Zhoushan virus. In short, scientists found the Wuhan coronavirus, the current pandemic, is highly similar to a bat SARS-like coronavirus previously discovered by the Nanjing Military Research Institute, showing 100% amino acid similarity in NSP7 and envelope protein, the E protein. What does this high similarity reveal?
Hard to see a protein is 100% identical when the virus jumps species. And so that was suggesting maybe the virus could be generated with a reverse engineer process.
I certainly believe that the 100% amino acid similarity says it can't possibly be a natural mutation. It almost certainly is a recombination event that was laboratory driven.
On January 21st, researchers from the Institut Pasteur, Shanghai, Chinese Academy of Sciences published a paper in Science China Life Sciences that mentioned an important phenomenon. The sequence of a key part of S protein of Wuhan virus has high homology with the SARS virus. What are S proteins? In the well-known coronavirus picture, they are little mushrooms attached to the surface of the virus. These S proteins, also known as spine proteins or spike proteins, are the most important tool for the coronavirus to invade human cells. If we compare the receptor ACE2 on the cell surface of human bodies to a lock, this S protein is the key, which can unlock this lock on the cell surface and then invade into the cell to propagate and destroy it.
That means virus now can infect human cell much easier. That's probably also one of the important reasons that contributing to multi-organ failure when people have a severe disease. They can spread out in the human body much faster.
Well, the S proteins, the high similarity of the S proteins from SARS-1 to now SARS-2, that's your spike protein. That's the lock and key. That's going to be what drives it right through human cells. And so we know that's the pathogenic spike protein that for the original SARS. So now you're allowing that access to human tissues because the spike proteins of the natural evolutionary strains don't infect human cells at all. So that research has been going on at Wuhan and published since 2007. And clearly, if that spike protein from SARS weren't on the new COVID-19 or SARS-2, it wouldn't be able to enter human cells. So again, this is evidence that it couldn't go through the Wuhan seafood market, because how did you get that spike protein off the original SARS from bats or any other way? It's lab derived.
January 2nd. An email from the Director General of the Institute to all internal staff was circulated. The subject was notice regarding the strict prohibition of disclosure of any information related to the Wuhan unknown pneumonia. National Health Commission clearly mandates that all detection, empirical data, results, and conclusions related to this outbreak cannot be published on self-media or social media, nor disclosed to any media, including state media, or collaborative organizations, including any technical services companies. January 21st, a new drug, remdesivir, provided for free by the United States to China for Wuhan coronavirus treatment, was preemptively patented by the Institute. February 3rd, Dr. Wu Xiaohua blew the whistle using his real name that Xi Zhengli's haphazard laboratory management may have led the Wuhan virus to leak from the lab. February 4th, Chairman of Duoyi, Xu Bo, blew the whistle using his real name that the Wuhan Institute of Virology was suspected of manufacturing and leaking the Wuhan virus. February 7th, top biochemical weapon expert of the People's Liberation Army, Chen Wei, officially assumed control over Wuhan Institute of Virology's P4 laboratory. February 14. Chinese leader Xi Jinping called for the inclusion of biosecurity into China's national security framework and to accelerate the introduction of a biosecurity law. February 15. The Institute refuted widely spread rumors on Chinese social media that a female graduate, Huang Yanling, was patient 0 and had perished. However, Huang's photo, CV, and thesis were all removed from the Institute's official website, leaving only her name. February 17, Institute researcher Chen Chuanjiao blew the whistle using her real name that Director General of the Institute, Wang Yanyi, was suspected of leaking the virus. At present, the Wuhan coronavirus pandemic has spread to about 190 countries with no signs of slowing down. The United States announced a state of national emergency. Europe became the new center of the outbreak. The world's largest art museum, the Louvre, and the Eiffel Tower closed to the public. Tragic scenes, previously only found in Hollywood films, are now playing out live on the world stage. And given how closely it seemed to align with the Chinese regime's narratives, I can't help but question the role the WHO had in this catastrophic. On March 24th, Texas lawyer Larry Klayman filed a complaint in Texas federal court seeking at least $20 trillion from the Chinese government. Klayman said in a statement, quote, "The Chinese people are a good people, but their government is not, and it must be made to pay dearly." On April 4th, the British think tank Henry Jackson Society advocated for compensation of £351 billion from the CCP to the UK, and that the government should pursue it through international courts. The same report called for a total compensation of £3.2 trillion to the G7 for the damages caused by the cover-up of the outbreak. On the same day, the All India Bar Association filed a complaint to the United Nations Human Rights Council, seeking an unspecified amount as reparations from China over the global spread of the coronavirus. Evidently, the CCP violated the international health regulations. The United States and the international community must regain their senses and take action.
Fiebre, problemas para respirar son los síntomas que alertan contagio por coronavirus. Sin embargo, los estudios semana a semana van mostrando nuevas características de su comportamiento. El delirium sería un síntoma primario del COVID-19. En algunos casos, alteración del sueño, agitación de conductas cotidianas e incluso desorientación.
Existen descritos complicaciones neurológicas que son relativamente frecuentes en infección por COVID-19, que es más común efectivamente en adultos mayores, pero sobre todo en adultos mayores con deterioro cognitivo o lisa y llanamente demencia.
La Academia Americana de Oftalmología advirtió que la inflamación en los ojos, dolor o rojo muy intenso en esta zona podría ser manifestación de coronavirus.
No se puede descartar que una persona tenga solamente conjuntivitis y que esa sea causada por el coronavirus.
Trastornos en los sentidos del gusto y el olfato serían un efecto primario del contagio.
La pérdida del olfato y la pérdida del gusto, que ha sido un marcador muy potente para el diagnóstico de la enfermedad por coronavirus.
De manera no muy frecuente se han registrado casos de manchas en el cuerpo, como en los pies, sobre todo en niños.
Hay un trabajo científico nuevo de Italia que tiene muchos casos, que nos hace ver que hay pacientes que llegan un 20% con manifestaciones cutáneas, que puede ser antes o durante la infección.
A pesar de esto, no hay que olvidar que existen en la población personas que pueden portar coronavirus sin tener ningún síntoma. Por eso es importante el uso de elementos de protección. Conscientes de esto, la empresa
Y realmente pocas personas imaginan el impacto que el coronavirus va a tener en el bolsillo de los consumidores a nivel mundial, porque nos va a afectar a todos. ¿Por qué? Porque el epicentro de virus en China, donde todo esto ha pasado, es la región donde se fabrican muchos de los productos que se venden en todo el mundo. Así que aquí les voy a contar cómo nos va a afectar, empezando en cuestión de semanas.
Desde juguetes hasta todo lo que tiene que ver con tecnología. Y ciertamente, la industria de la ropa y la automotriz. Muchos de los productos que compramos están hechos en la China, pero ahora el coronavirus está interfiriendo con la cadena de distribución de todos esos productos al resto del mercado.
La China es responsable de una quinta parte de todo lo que se produce a nivel global. Cuando vemos que se están cerrando fábricas, que los consumidores no están saliendo ni viajando y mucho menos gastando, podemos esperar que la economía mundial se verá golpeada.
A pesar de la guerra comercial con la China, ese país sigue siendo el aliado económico número 1 de Estados Unidos. Por eso, las empresas estadounidenses ya se están viendo muy afectadas. El lunes, la poderosa compañía Apple anunció que este trimestre no podrá cumplir con sus proyecciones de ganancias. La China manufactura un 80% de todos los celulares y tabletas que se venden en el planeta. Y la producción de todos esos aparatos ha decaído por culpa de las cuarentenas a causa del coronavirus. Y mientras productos que deben viajar a Estados Unidos permanecen estancados en puertos de embarque en China, todo parece indicar que los consumidores empezarán a ver los estantes de las tiendas vacíos comenzando en abril. Para los consumidores que se preguntan si acaso los paquetes que vienen de la China pueden transmitirle el virus, el Centro para el Control de Enfermedades dice que el virus se transmite por las gotitas cuando uno tose o estornuda. Y generalmente el virus que contienen esas gotitas tienen pocas posibilidades de sobrevivir en superficies. O sea, palabras muy bien escogidas por el CDC. La entidad reconoce que hay mucho que aprender sobre cómo se comporta el virus.
Para contagiarte tienes que estar al menos 6 pies de distancia de una persona infectada que esté tosiendo y estornudando.
Mas está probado que un enfermo que no presenta síntomas puede contagiar el virus. Por algo el gobierno chino le está diciendo a todos sus bancos que tienen que desinfectar sus billetes. Están sometiéndolos a rayos ultravioleta de alta temperatura para matar cualquier rastro del coronavirus. La industria aérea y la de los cruceros ya se están preparando para el impacto. Cada año, 3 millones de turistas chinos visitan los Estados Unidos y aportan $35,000 millones a la economía. California recibe una buena parte de esos turistas y solamente ese estado puede perder $1,000 millones en los próximos meses. Y estas imágenes de pasajeros en cruceros y en aviones en cuarentena están llevando a que muchas personas suspendan los viajes que tenían programados.
En este momento se siente bastante el bajón. La gente está muy nerviosa, la gente tiene pánico y pues esto limita terriblemente en el momento de hacer sus decisiones, pues hacer cualquier arreglo de viaje. Sí, hemos notado mucha baja.
This virus must have a message for all of us as people of this earth. We need to take a break from our busy schedules and seriously consider the repercussions of our ever-expanding scientific research and development. Did we go too far? Do our desires and ambitions go against the laws of nature and pull us further from the direction given by heaven? Maybe when this virus lifts, we can again find our traditional values, rediscover kindness and virtue, family and community. I believe that viruses can't survive where hearts have compassion.